What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fire Hose, a podcast of Our Redeemer Lutheran, bringing you solid Christian doctrine at 1,000 PSI on a weekly basis. I am your lovable host, Peter Heckert, the associate pastor here at Our Redeemer Lutheran, and you have done marvelously. You should all give yourselves a pat on the back. You've done so well.
First of all, I want you all to give yourselves a big hand for just being here.
And I say that not facetiously, but because you have put up with me this far. We've been going through all of this. We went through the creeds. We went through the 95 Theses, first and foremost. Then we went through the creeds. We went through the historical background, the introduction to the Augsburg Confession. But now we've made it. Now we've actually gotten into the meat of the Augsburg Confession.
It's what's for dinner.
But without further ado, hang on to your teeth, people, because we're going to charge the line. Let's get into this. The very first article of the Augsburg Confession is on God himself and really kind of the nature of God. It is worth mentioning, and I'm going to read a little bit, kind of abbreviate some of the reader's notes that are here in the Concordia. The Lutheran Confessions. They include some reader's notes in here, which are often very helpful. Not always, but often. So I'll kind of summarize some of the thoughts that they have in here. First and foremost, it is worth mentioning, especially back when this text was written, that Luther never wanted to separate from Rome. That was not his aim. That was not his intent. That was not his desire. His desire was for reformation, to purify the one holy Catholic, lower C, and apostolic church here on earth. And that's what the Augsburg Confession was desiring to do. It was meant to sort of call to task the errors that Rome had fallen into and still kind of persist in today. Not saying that they're not Christian, but they've allowed false teachings to creep in over the years. That was the whole point of this. Now, you will hear language in the Augsburg Confession talking about different heresies that are condemned by the Augsburg Confession, and you should understand that as divisions. These are divisions. These are teachings that have caused division because either two things can't be right at once. There is objective truth, and either the Lord is bodily present, for example, in the Lord's Supper, or he's not. These two things cannot be right at the same exact time. So, where we stand on things, anything that falls outside of that scope, we call heresy because they are a form of division within the church. Now, this is not directed exclusively at Rome. Bear in mind, as you heard last week, that some of this is also against the radical reformers, such as Ulrich Zwingli, Peter Butzer, eventually further on down the line, Jean Calvin, the Anabaptists. That's who this is aimed against. Anyone who is teaching from the Lutheran reformers' position, teaching falsely, and kind of establishing what we believe. We stand against, you'll hear in a few moments that we stand against the Manichaeans. What does that mean? We'll talk about it. But during the Reformation, radical groups espoused various forms of earlier heresies. That's the thing that we especially talked about when we were talking about the creeds. These heresies that existed in the early church, they are still alive and well today. So they were certainly still alive and well back during the time of the Reformation. Looked different, maybe spoke a little different, but they were still present. And that is what this was aiming to expose and aiming to correct. And that's what Article 1 does. This is talking about God. This is going right back to the creeds, okay? It's sort of emphasizing that the Lutheran preachers, the Lutheran reformers, embrace the historic Christian faith that has been handed down through the ages, from the Nicene Council onward. So, it also will, therefore, also reject all the errors that the church throughout the ages has also condemned. So, with that out of the way, this is what Article 1 of the Augsburg Confession, the Augustana, actually says. Our churches teach, with common consent, that the decree of the Council of Nicaea about the unity of the divine essence and the three persons is true. God, it is to be believed without any doubt. God is one divine essence who is eternal, without a body, without parts, of infinite power, wisdom, and goodness. Just a brief word about that. They're talking about, when they're saying that without a body, maybe red flags were going up in your mind. Wait, Jesus has a body. Yes, but they're speaking holistically of the triune Godhead. What we say about the second person of the Trinity, Jesus, as he is now, since he has assumed human flesh and has taken that assumed flesh with him in the ascension back to the right hand of God, where he is currently ruling, is not what they're talking about. They're talking about the holistic Trinity. So you can't say of the Father, because Jesus has a body, therefore the Father has a body. It's not the way this works. So they're speaking of that holistically, just as a brief aside. Maybe not so brief aside. He is the maker and preserver of all things, visible and invisible. Yet there are three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. These three persons are of the same essence and power. Our churches use the term person as the fathers have used it. We use it to signify not a part or a quality in another, but that which subsists of itself. As in subsists, for the record, I had to look that up actually, what it meant in the context. But that which exists of itself. When we're talking about the nature of God, and we talked about this with the creeds, you're kind of talking about stuff that we can't really understand with our mortal, broken brains. So we simply have to explain it as best we could, as best we can, without wandering into the realm of heresy. Patrick.
Oh, Patrick. Come on, Patrick. That's Arianism, Patrick.
That is the best way that we can understand that. We use that term person to signify how God has revealed himself. So he has revealed himself as Father, as Son, as Holy Spirit. And the best way that we can understand it is through the use of the word person. Okay? And obviously not exclusively in English. Other languages have their version of that as well. Also, when they're talking about the fathers, we're talking about the church fathers, those early Christian church leaders like Augustine, Jerome, Athanasius, etc., Justus Jonas, or not Justus, very different guy. Not Justus Jonas, Justin Martyr, Polycarp, these guys. That's who we're talking about when they say the fathers. Our churches condemn all heresies, again, divisions, and that comes courtesy of Titus 3, verses 10 through 11, that arose against this article, such as the Manichaeans, who assumed that there are two principles, one good and the other evil. Classic dualism. I believe that Manichaeism is a version of Gnosticism. They also condemn the Valentinians, who were a Gnostic text, the Arians, who we know an awful lot about over the past couple of episodes, the Eunomians, Muslims, and in Luther's day they actually referred to them as the Mohammedans, and all heresies such as these. Isn't that interesting? They refer to Islam not as an exclusive religion, but as a heresy. I think that's kind of important to bear in mind, especially as we are living in this modern age, coming in contact with Muslims, and kind of having that understanding. That's not to say that we worship the same God. Don't hear me saying that. But it is interesting to say that the Reformers, Luther himself, equated Muslims, Mohammedans, not as exclusively and distinct religion, but as those who are following heresy. Perhaps that is something to bear in mind, and maybe a warning against heresy, that it can lead to an exclusively different religion. Just bear that in mind. Our churches also condemn this. I can never pronounce this. Our churches also condemn the Samosatines. Samosatines? Samosatines. Our churches also condemn the Samosatines. I think that's how it's pronounced. Old and new, who contend that God is but one person. The modern equivalent of this would probably be the monarchian sects that you see, like the Oneness Pentecostals. They would probably be a similar thing. Through sophistry, they impiously argue that the Word and the Holy Spirit are not distinct persons. They say that Word signifies a spoken word, and Spirit signifies motion created in things. It's interesting that they say that, because when I looked up what the Samosatines actually believed, they did not believe that Jesus is God. They did not believe that he was God made man. They believed that he was man made God. Vastly different theology. I think I'm going to stop there. I think I've gone on with enough exposition and enough going through the text. So we'll stop there for today. Please do let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to leave them in the comments, or feel free to email me at your leisure. Give me a call. I don't mind. I don't mind talking to people, but please do share this out with everybody. We've had some pretty good reception, gotten like upwards of 100-some views on some of these videos, and for that I'm exceedingly grateful. Not for my own benefit, okay? I do hope you understand this. I'm not doing this for me. I'm not doing this to build myself up. This is simply to get what it is that we believe, teach, and confess out to the world, and especially for you, dear viewer, that you would be strengthened in your faith, knowing it, what it is that you believe as a Lutheran, why you believe it, and how it actually does impact your life. So with that, again, I pray you have a wonderful rest of the day. Until next time, I pray God's richest blessings upon all of you. This has been Firehose. We're shutting it down. Now, folks, if you don't have a church home, first and foremost, I would suggest highly that you check out the LCMS churches in your area. I can almost guarantee you that there will be plenty of options for you. If, however, you are here in the Milwaukee Metro, especially in the Wauwatosa area, feel free to join us. We've got services on Saturday night at 4:30. We've got 2 services on Sunday morning, one at 9 and one at 10:30. Whichever one you go to, you will hear Christ crucified and resurrected for you. Now, until the time that we see each other again, keep the faith, and I hope to see you in church.